So I'm going to have a quick chat today about canning equipment and essentials. The things you're going to really need in order to pressure can successfully. Here is the bulk. So the first thing you need is a pressure canner. Ta-da! Woo. Here are two pressure canners. I've got a Presto 23, which is the larger silver one, which is very good for large batches. You can double stack it, which is fantastic. If you're using the smaller Wecks, you can also triple stack it. And also my dear little Sunny for smaller batches. It's the same capacity around. I've done a video on the pressure canners themselves, which I will stick in the links. So obviously the next most important thing are your jars. Now, whether you decide to use the general mason jars, I do use these. Personally, they're not my favourites. I prefer the Wecks for many reasons. Again, I'll stick that video in the links explaining my reasons for that, but it's mostly to do with the lids and not being beholden on the lid front, which is particularly evident at the moment with all the shortages. So my jars of choice are my Weck jars, for which we need the jars themselves, we need a supply of the rings, and you need clips. Now with both kinds of jars, the securing mechanisms, so whether it's the ring or the clips, you want to make sure that you've got a good stock for what you'll need, but you don't need to store too many. You only need as many rings or clips as you will use for your canning runs within 48 hours. So there are two of the things that I value the most on this board right now, and they might not be what you'd expect. The first are these, my lovely snappy tongs. Now, I believe from memory these were actually Weck tongs. I much prefer the hold you get on both types of jars with these. I have talked about them again in another video, but it's worth mentioning here. So they are ideal even for the mason jars. They're really sturdy and I much prefer them. I do have a set of Kilner tongs as well. I've actually got two of these. I do have a set of Kilner tongs as well, which I don't find them as pleasing. I don't find them as secure. See? Part of that's going to be my cack-handedness, but part of it's also this shoulder slip business. When you're trying to pick up the jars, they don't feel quite as stable. You've got to grip them a lot more tightly. Spring-loaded, these ones. So I don't use those tongs, actually. I used them twice, I think. And the rest of the time I use my Wecks because they're just, in my opinion, my personal experience, superior. The other thing is, or are, I should say, my metal funnels. Now, I love these. I actually bought these years ago, long before I started pressure canning, but they have come in absolutely invaluable. This one is the one that I generally use in most things. It's the perfect size to fit in the Wecks, in the Kilner jar there. It's nice, it's stable. You know, look. It gives you a good measurement of roughly an inch, which also is ideal when you're pressure canning. So I love these. They whack them in the dishwasher, no worries whatsoever. They don't pick up that soapy smell and taste that seems to happen with plastic ones. Obviously they don't discolour, so those are fantastic. And I am grateful for those every time I have to use them. Now what else have I got here? I have my variable weight jiggler, 15, 10, 5 pounds of pressure. Invaluable. Now this is a Nor Pro, I believe, debubbler and measurer. If you look closely, if you can see that, you can see that it's just got the measurements: 1 inch, 3/4, half an inch, 1/4, and that just sits nicely on the rim of the jar at your desired measurement, and you know exactly how much headspace you've got. As you can see, 1 inch of headspace comes to roughly the bottom of that rim, just in the shoulder. Don't know if I'm holding that at a good angle for you. There we go. So that's what 1 inch looks like in a mason jar. I have to admit, I do use this, but I tend to do a lot of it by eye. But I am very familiar with where things come on the jars, so I don't always use this. But especially when you're starting out, and if you're at all unsure of the measurements, this thing is fantastic. And I'd say you can also use it to debubble, as so. I've also got here, I've got a spare gasket for my pressure canner, and I've got a spare overpressure plug for each canner. This one is for my little Sunny, and that's also the pressure indicator mechanism. Tea towel, self-explanatory, mostly. Put it on the surface, put the jars on top. Voila. I also have, obviously these are where I keep my accoutrement. So I've got a jar full of Weck rings in there, keeps them safe. And I've got this one, which is where all of my jigglers, all of my clips. Note the nice small storage space compared to the mason rings. I also keep my overpressure plugs in here, just to keep them safe and secure, and so that I know where they are. And probably the biggest one of all, my home canning book. So this is the complete guide to home canning, which I have mentioned before in other videos, and it is an absolute godsend. It's no frills, it's solid information, it gives you a good grounding in why things are done the way they are. It's got information on temperatures, on altitude, and it goes through all of that. Elevation. It also has the biggest section. It goes into how to do all sorts of things, how to prepare things. It talks through the processes themselves, both water bath and pressure canning. It also has a little glossary there of other terms and explains them. Index. Haha, the bit we want. So this bit contains, as you can see, a lot of information. Now if I go back to the beginning of the book, it shows us the different sections. So we've got tomato products, we've got vegetable products, meats at the bottom and on the next page there, fruit products and principles. It's all in there. And it's no frills, it's perfect for looking something up quickly. It finds you the information that you need to go, okay, I want to do standard tomato sauce. I need these ingredients, this is how I acidify it. It's got processing times for boiling water canner, dial gauge pressure canner and a weighted gauge pressure canner. Now this is what I use the most. So I always know the weighted gauge pressure canner, it gives you different jar sizes, times and options for your elevation. So it's nice, it's clear, it's fantastic. If you buy one book, get this book. It will tell you everything. Another thing that a lot of people find more useful than shouting at Siri from across the room, like I tend to most of the time, is this canning timer. This is by, I believe, the Oregon Extension Office. I could be wrong on that, I'll double check it. So what we do, it's really easy to use. You go in, you select what you're processing. So we're going to go meat. I'm going to choose meat stock or broth, pint size, hot pack, weighted gauge. I can choose my elevation, continue. And it gives you detailed instructions on what you need to be doing, allows you to tick it off. So turn heat to high. It gives you a timer. So this first timer, which it won't let me skip, is for your vent. So as soon as there is a steady flow of steam, a little cone shape, you want to set this timer running. At the end of this time, turn the timer off, plop your weight on. It will then give you the next set of instructions and then the processing time, the appropriate processing time for the item that you've selected. Obviously, I can't skip this step, so I can't show you in the video, but that is very useful as well. So that is a list of the most essential things that you will need to start your pressure canning journey. They are all relatively accessible. Some of them are going to be more expensive because they're coming from the US. There are cheaper Chinese options. I've got a gasket here. This was from, I think, eBay or Amazon. It's much, much bendier. I'm not sure how well this would stand up. I think it's more for a pressure cooker. But I just got this actually for a different project. I've butchered it slightly, I've cut it up. But these are good and firm and supple, and if you oil them with every use, they will give you a good long season. What you also want to have, now what should come with your canner is a canning rack. So this is a perforated piece of metal that sits in the bottom of your canner that you can place your jars on to process. You can use one in the bottom, or if you're stacking, you can use one between each layer. And it allows the water and steam to pass through the perforations, so it doesn't impede the processing at all. Okay, I think I've covered everything. If there's anything that you think I've forgotten, please let me know, and I will do what I can. Thank you.